Okay. Okay. Am I the organizer today? Because I can't see anyone else in the chat. If I'm not, make me the organizer. Okay. Any questions before? If you guys have any questions, I can take the questions. Okay. All right. So let's go. Let's start off for today. Okay. All right. So let's start off for today. So far we have looked at a lot of things, right? So it has been almost 5 weeks now, exception of one day. So we have done for almost 5 weeks. So today, if I close the class, it will be 5 weeks done, right? So we have seen lot many things, like we have seen all about EC2, then we have seen about S3, and then we have looked at CloudFront, Glacier, RDS, Route 53, CloudWatch, SNS, uh, IAM. So we have looked at all of these things. Today, what we are going to look at is something called as Elastic Beanstalk, right? Elastic Beanstalk. Elastic Beanstalk is a truly platform as a service, right? It's a truly a solution as platform as a service solution, right? So what's going to happen with Elastic Beanstalk is very interesting, right? So just look at what Elastic Beanstalk is here, right? So what Elastic Beanstalk does is it will host your application. Say you are a new user to AWS, right? You're a new user to AWS and you don't want to get into the business of launching EC2 instances, configuring visual groups, configuring security groups, configuring elastic load balancers, auto scaling. You don't want to do all of this stuff. Only thing that you want from AWS is to host your application, right? To host your application. That is the only thing that you are looking from AWS. Okay. So, and if that is the case, normally so far what we have seen, we were launching the load balancers, we were creating the auto scaling groups, we were creating the security groups, right? Then we were deploying so far what we had deployed was only the index.html page. That is what we were deploying, right? Say for example, you have a Tomcat application, right? Application which works on Tomcat. Tomcat, by the way, is an application server or a web server, whatever you want to call. So in a similar way, if you have application developed in one of these platforms, right, Java or .NET or PHP or Node.js, Python, Ruby, Go, Docker, right? So these are all the platforms and these are all the servers on which your applications can be loaded. Okay. What you're going to do is you're going to simply upload your application, right? Say once you develop an application, you will get say for example, today what we are going to look at is Tomcat applications. For Tomcat applications, what you're going to get is WAR file, WAR file, right? In a similar way, for every application, there will be application file, which is nothing but a container of all of your application files, right? So if I want to deploy a Tomcat application, I have to deploy a WAR file, WAR file, right? So in a similar way, if you want to deploy .NET, probably it will be exe or something like that, right? So every application platform will have its own type of file. Okay. So what we are going to do is we are going to look at that. We are going to deploy a small application today. Okay. So if you look at product details, it basically talks about the same thing that I was talking about. It talks about it supports resource provisioning, load balancing, auto scaling, and all of this, and it will also create the required CloudWatch monitors and all of the stuff, right? So probably once we start out, then it will be better for you guys to understand. So without any wasting much time on just talking about this, we are going to implement it, right? And if you look at the pricing, right, it says there is no additional charges for AWS Elastic Beanstalk, right? So Elastic Beanstalk is free. Only thing is, once you use the Elastic Beanstalk, what it is going to do is it is going to create other resources. It is going to create resources like load balancers. It is going to create resources like EC2 instances. For those, you will be charged. But just by using Elastic Beanstalk, you will not be charged anything. Okay. All right. So let's go and look at Elastic Beanstalk for today. Click on Elastic Beanstalk. It will open up this page. So the first question it will ask you is, what is your platform? Right? You want to Elastic Beanstalk is basically, see, there is a brief information, right? It basically says select a platform, upload an application, run it. So that is what we are going to do. Just need to first select a platform and then need to upload your application. Your application can be your application can be an application which works on one of these platforms, right? So then you're going to upload your application, then you're going to use your application. Simple. There's nothing much in it. It is very simple, but it is very powerful, right? So today what we are going to do is we are going to deploy a Tomcat application, for example, right? So I have a couple of WAR files which I am going to use to deploy the Tomcat application. Okay, so from this drop down, I'm selecting a Tomcat because I have a couple of WAR files which can be deployed on Tomcat server. So if you have any IaaS application or a Python application ready and that can be executed, you can choose those platforms. For this demo, I'm going to use Tomcat. Click Tomcat there, click launch new, right? So now look at, see what's happening, right? All I did was just selected the platform and clicked on launch now. That's it, right? So now what it is doing is it says create environment is starting, and what it is now doing is it's going to launch a S3 bucket where actually your sample application will be running. Then it's going to create multiple other resources. We'll just give it 2 minutes, and by the time I think it will be done. On view events, it will basically launch multiple instances, multiple resources of AWS. Okay, so I think in a couple of minutes it should be done. So we'll give it a couple of minutes of time. In the meanwhile, you can keep looking at your EC2 and other stuff. Right, if I open up EC2 right now, you don't see, I don't have any instances, right? Right now I don't have any instances at all. But while this Elastic Beanstalk is being deployed, it's going to create some resources, right? It has created a security group, then it has created a load balancer. Okay, then very shortly it's going to create also it also created a auto scaling group, auto scaling launch configuration. going to create EC2 instances, and it is also going to create auto scaling groups. For that, it is also going to create CloudWatch alarms. So all of that it is going to create. For an application perspective, if you just want to deploy an application, Elastic Beanstalk is a solution. Elastic Beanstalk is an ideal solution for somebody just wanting to deploy only applications. Right? If you look at it, it has created. It is trying to launch a EC2 instance. It is trying to create an auto scaling group. Then it is also trying to create a couple of CloudWatch alarms. It's doing all of this stuff. If you click on events here, basically it will show you what all it is doing. Okay, so it has launched a auto scaling group as well. It has launched the instance. Now if I go here, now if I do a refresh, right, have a EC2 instance. I haven't launched this instance, right? I haven't launched this instance at all. This instance was launched by AWS themselves, right? Okay, and now it says deployed. My deployment server is ready. My application server is ready. Now if I click on this, right, basically it will take you to the application that was deployed on this environment, right? Basically it should show you the default page. So this is the default page for this Tomcat application, right? Now the important and the most important thing that you want to do with this is you want to deploy your own application, right? You want to deploy your own application. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on, by default we have this application, right? And the default link is this one, right? Now if I want to have www. Yesterday we were looking at it, right? Yesterday we were looking at Route 53. This name is very weird, right? This name is absolutely weird. You cannot remember this name, right? So you say, for example, if I want to have a www.collaboraaws.in for this name, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this name and go into my Route 53. If you guys remember from yesterday's class, add a record for that, saying that whenever somebody types in www.collaboraaws.in, redirect them to this page, right? So you don't have to use this weird link, right? Right. So the main purpose of this one is to deploy applications, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to click on upload and deploy, and now you have to choose a file. You have to choose a file which you're going to deploy on this platform, right? So I have a couple of WAR files downloaded, couple of application files downloaded. Now if I'm going to click on this, right, I've selected the sample WAR file which I've downloaded from internet. Deployment, say if I have more than one instance, if I have more than one instance, on how many instances you want to deploy, it's asking you the question, right? How many instances at a time you want to deploy? That is what it is. I just have one instance, so I'm going to go with 100%. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to click on deploy, right? Now it is doing the deployment of your application on Elastic Beanstalk platform, right? So if you remember this, the initial page was this one. Now I've deployed my own custom application. We'll give it a couple of minutes. By the time it should be done. Okay, it says it is deployed. So now my application is deployed, but remember the link is going to be the same. Now I'm getting a different page. So what I've done, I have deployed a different version of application, right? So tomorrow I'm going to add some more components to my application. I'm basically an application developer, right? I don't care how that is being hosted. All I want is I want my application to be hosted on a platform, right? That is what we are doing now. All we are doing is we just launched an environment. On top of that, we are deploying our applications. One application we deployed. Now what we are going to do is we are going to deploy another application, right? I'm just keep deploying different applications on the same environment just to show you that this link will not change. But see, today I have only 5 pages in my website. Tomorrow I may add a 6th page, right? Tomorrow I may add some more features. That doesn't mean that I'm going to rebuild all of my servers and all of the stuff, right? So after I build my application, I'm going to deploy the same application on the same service. So that is what I'm doing now. But normally, if you have to deploy your application, you have to do say if you want to just deploy this Tomcat application also, there are a lot many steps. But here you don't have all of those steps. Here all you have to do is click on upload deploy, choose file, right? Say I have downloaded another application, calendar.war. Click deploy. And it says deploying a new version of instance, so that it does it itself. You don't have to worry about anything. And if you look at new events, it will basically show you what all it's doing, right? We'll talk about the configuration of the stuff here. There is some important things that we need to look at. If I'll try to open this page, it will take it. This is another version of my application. If I click on this, it will take me to this calendar application, right? So what I've done, this was the initial application. This was the sample application that came along with the Tomcat. Then I have deployed one application on top of it. Then I did some enhancement to my application and deployed another application. So deploying applications has become so very easy, right? But behind the scenes, what is happening? We are saying we are deploying an application, that is easy. But behind the scenes, what is happening? So where is my application being hosted? On what type of instances? So all of this information will be in configuration. If you look at the configuration, right, it talks about it, right? It talks about it. So the configuration that you have is, say for example, with respect to auto scaling, what you have is your environment is load balancing environment. You just don't have one machine. You have load balancing auto scaling environment, right? And the current status is 1 instance and going to automatically scale up to 4 instances. Say if you think that your application server needs more instances, come to auto scaling and change it. So I may need up to 10 servers. But if you guys remember, initially when we talked about auto scaling, you configured everything, right? You configured on the auto scaling groups, auto launch configurations, CloudWatch alarms. You have created everything. Here everything is ready for you. All you are doing is you're just configuring it. Okay. So in what all availability zones you should have your EC2 instances, right? Depending on your choice, you can choose. Then scaling triggers. This is, if you remember auto scaling, when should it scale up? When should it scale down, right? Trigger measurement. So what is the trigger that has been chosen here is network out. By default, it has chosen this. If you think that network out is not a valid metric for you, right, to add more instances, then say probably like we looked at CPU utilization is valid metric for my EC2 instance to trigger of addition of instances. Then I can choose it. Depending on your requirement, you can choose it. I'll just go with the network out itself. So what it basically says is keep measuring network output, network out stats, right? Average bytes whenever for 5 minutes of time, and whenever there is an upper threshold, right? So whenever these many packets, uh, this much of network traffic is happening, it's going to add one instance. Whenever the packets are less than this, it's going to remove one instance, right? So this is all easy. You don't have to worry about configuring auto scaling. Okay, then you have, if you want to do time-based scaling. Time-based scaling is an important, interesting option. Say from 9 to 5, from 9 to 5 is a business hours for your organization, right? So during 9 to 5 hours, say probably you need more service. Okay, 9 to 5 you need more service, and after the business hour, uh, say less service will do the job. Say from 9 to 5 you need 100 servers, but after everybody is gone, your application is not being used properly. So maybe you want to say from 5 to say 6 to morning 9, in the morning 9, you just need 50 servers instead of 100. You can do that. All you have to do is add schedule action, just give a name, right? How many instances minimum, how many instances maximum, occurs when, right? Recurrent, if you regularly want this to happen, right? And you just have to give time, it's going to do that for you, right? It's going to automatically scale up and scale down, right? So that is for the timeless scaling. We don't want to look at that, but it's already there. If you want to change anything, you can change it and click on apply, right? So I have applied this. Just going to update the configuration. Again, if I come back to the configuration, by default, right? By default, it has chosen t1.micro, right? If you look at this, I have got a t1.micro instance, but t1.micro instance is very small for my application. My application cannot work on t1.micro. If I want a bigger instance, say for example, my application needs a t2.micro, right? Your application that you're going to deploy on Elastic Beanstalk, you might need a bigger instance, right? If you think that you need a bigger instance, all that you have to do is you have to change the configuration. Say for example, I need a t2.micro instance, and this is part of this security group, right? This instance that I have here now, that has been launched by Elastic Beanstalk, is part of this security group. Even this security group has been created by Elastic Beanstalk itself, right? Now, if you want to log into your instance, then if I do a refresh, right? EC2 key pair, I'm using a key pair. This is your IAM role. If you don't have any, just leave it. Then how often it should be monitored, and what is the AMI, right? So it has chosen all of the stuff for you. And if you, what is the EBS volume size should be, and all of this stuff, right? If you want anything as such, if you want to configure anything as such, you can change this stuff and click on apply. Right now, if I click on apply, click on save. Right now, notifications is, say if you want to have notifications sent to your email address, you can give that. Other than that, you have software configuration specific to Tomcat, right? If you want to enable logging, or if you know about heap size, Java heap size, because Tomcat is a Java container, right? Tomcat runs Java based applications. So if you want to have if you want to configure your heap size, JVM heap size, then you can configure it. Then if you want to enable logging into your S3 bucket, you can do that, right? We're not going to do all of that stuff. If you want to change the update behavior whenever a new version of application is being deployed, on how many servers at a time it should deploy, right? You can configure those things. Just going to click on cancel, and for your load balancer, if you want to configure Elastic Beanstalk, sorry, for your load balancer, if you want to configure a health check, you can do that. So what else is there? Load balancing is being done on port 80 and it has launched on the default VPC, right? Right now, what it is not using a database at all, right? If you want to add a database, you can add the database also to Elastic Beanstalk. And now if I go back to my dashboard, my application is still running. What has it done to my application? Okay, so with this, what else you can do is, say, for example, you can click on your application, go into actions, and say restart app servers, right? Say you think something is going wrong with your app servers, you can click on this, and if you're going to do this, it's going to restart the application service. Somehow my servers are not coming up, but let's try this again. Wow, I think it's broken. So what you can do is, you can probably say rebuild environment. So what it is going to do is, it's going to redo everything. Let's give it a couple of minutes to run, and we should have our application ready. In the meanwhile, I would suggest you guys to read about subnetting, because in the next class, probably on the next Saturday, we are going to talk about VPCs, right? For the VPCs, you guys have to understand subnetting. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for you people to understand. So I would suggest go through these 3 links, right? I would suggest go through these 3 links, which will make more sense, right? When I'm explaining it, you guys will be able to understand it. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for everyone, not only for me, for everyone, it's going to be difficult. So I'm going to, I just typed it in Google and I've gone through these links. These links have very good explanation on subnetting, right? So I want you people to read through these links and get a hang of subnetting. Okay, and there are also a couple of videos, right? There are also a couple of videos like subnetting for dummies, right? You can watch this video and understand subnetting as well. For the next class, it is like a prereq. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for you people to understand. Okay. All right. So let's come back to this. It's still happening. Now if I look at configuration, that is what is happening. Now it is launching the instance on t2.micro as I have selected, right? I've changed it from t1.micro to t2.micro. And if you look at the logs, it's still coming up, I guess. still coming up, so we'll have to give it some time. So this is the default environment. I'm just giving it a couple of minutes to come back online. That seems to be taking a bit longer than I expected. And if you go into this application versions here, right, it has all of your application versions basically. So the first thing that we deployed was it deployed was a sample application. Then we deployed a sample.var. Then we deployed a calendar.var. Now if you want to change the versions, all you have to do is you have to click on it. Currently it is running with calendar.var, right? If you want to go back to say I have developed an application, I've built an application today and I've deployed it, and I also have deployed a new application yesterday, but today's application seems to be having some bugs. So what I'm quickly going to do is I'm going to go back to my previous day's application. So for that, all you have to do is click on this and click on deploy. But we'll just give it I hope this should be done. It is still taking time. It should not have taken so long. Okay, now it is ready. If I click on this, right, my calendar application is working fine. Now if I go back to my application versions as I was explaining it, if I want to deploy this one, all I have to click on deploy, and it's going to ask you on which environment. Right now what we have is only one environment. If I'm going to click on that, and if I'm going to click on deploy, now if you go back into environments and check out this, right, it is deploying my previous version of application, which was sample, right? So this should be very fast. So in this way you can keep changing your deployed application versions also. From one version to another version, it is very easy to switch, right? Okay, so that's the one I want to show you. Then if you want to look at the logs, right, if I say full log, this is the application log, right? If I simply click on download, it's going to download a bunch of application logs, right? So these are all the logs for your Tomcat, HTTPD, and all of this stuff, right? I'm going to get into this log stuff, but that is how you can download the logs, or if you want to see last 100 lines of your log files, you can see it here. Right here, you can see it, right? If you want to click this, it's going to download again. Okay, monitoring. Right, so if I click on monitoring, it has automatically saved. When I let me show this. Now if I go back into my CloudWatch, right, I would see a lot of metrics, right? These are the metrics. These are some of the metrics for the EC2 instance that were launched, right? And if I come back here, now if you look at it, it basically shows the latencies, the sum of requests, how many people have accessed my application so far, right? All of this metrics related to my Elastic Beanstalk. Total till now, there are only 3 people who visited my page, right? Because only I'm doing it, nobody else is there to do it. So it is only three people. That's what it says. Right now, if I try to see it again, now if I do a, probably it might take some time for that to get reflected, but it says currently I have one host and the CPU utilization is 10.4% and the average latency is 768, that is in milliseconds, you can ignore that, and network out so far as well 936 KB, right? So depending on these metrics of network out, if you remember, we have it has configured the auto scaling actions. Okay, so you can see the stats. You can see the stats for your application as well. Right. It still says 3 requests. I thought it should say 4. Okay, that's fine. It's still picking up from the logs. But basically, this is how your logs will appear. And if you want to configure any alarms, you can configure your alarms, but we don't want to do anything as such. And if you look at the events, basically it's going to show you what all has been happening on your Elastic Beanstalk environment, right? It was able to pull the logs, it was able to create the instances, it was able to do all of this stuff, all of the changes that we have been doing, it is doing it. Okay, so my current status is green, and if I want to deploy another application, I can very well do that. I don't know. Let me see if this is working fine. I haven't tested that file, so I'm just going to deploy it. There are a couple of other things that we need to look at in Elastic Beanstalk. Then we'll move on to CloudFront. Okay, that's what it says. Okay, probably say this is my new application that I have deployed, but it is not working, right? So what I've done is I've broken my application. Now I want to correct it, right? I just want to go back to my previous version. The current version, the example application that I've loaded, seems to be not working at all. It has some error in it. So I don't want to have my website down till I correct the error. So what I can do is I can switch back to the yesterday's one. So for that, all I have to do is I have to come into application environments. I don't want this example dot what something is wrong with it. So I want to redeploy this. Right? Where do you want to put? I just have one environment. If you have multiple environments, those environments will be listed here. Right? So my new this is being deployed. Now if I go back into environments, this is the default environment that I have. So I'm rolling back the change. I've done a change, it is not working, so I'm switching back to my older version of application. Okay, on this, it's fine. Now I'm back to the calendar version, right? So in this way, you can easily change your application versions. Okay. If you have any saved, we'll look at the saved configuration in a moment. If you want to have, so this is the one environment that I have, right? When I click on get started, it has created this environment, right? If I want to have a different environment, if I want to have another environment, I can click here, launch new environment. Basically, there are two types of environments. One is called as a web server environment, which is basically the front ending, and then there is another type of environment called as worker environment. We are not going to do a worker environment because we don't have any application service. We are going to do a web server itself. So create web server, then you can get to choose the platform. These are the same steps. Click on get started now, and these are the same steps, right? And what I'm doing is I'm going to launch a Tomcat instance. Then it gives you an option of whether you want a single instance or a multiple instance. So if I'm going to do that, select that, click on next. Then it's going to ask you for your application that has to be deployed, right? So it says basically you have all these applications. Do you want to deploy one of them, or you're going to upload a new file, or you're going to choose a link from your S3 bucket. Okay, say for example, I'm going to use my sample application and click next. So what do you want to name it, and site name, right? So I can say Collabra AWS Collabra. I'm just checking this domain name if it is available, but the extension will be .elasticbeanstalk.com. But if I want to change this, what I have to do, you guys remember, I'll have to go to Route 53 and map Collabra AWS. Say for example, I can have elasticbeanstalk.collabra.aws.com coming to this address. You guys remember from yesterday's class? You should be able to do that. If you need a RDS instance, right now what the application that we launched is a sample small application. But if your application needs a database server also, right, then you're going to click this. Then it's going to ask you information about RDS configuration. If I uncheck this, you see those buttons going away, right? Next configure. Then it's going to ask you for what type of instance you want, what is the key pair, what is the email address, and all of this stuff, right? Click next. Tags that you want to have, and if you have any role or anything like that, you can choose it. Click next, and if I'm going to click on launch, it's going to launch another environment, like the one environment that we have. We already have this environment, right? If I would have done that, it would have launched a new environment. All for launching a new environment, all I have to do is I have to click here, go into environments, actions, launch new environment. Again, you will get the same questions that we have looked at. So that way you can launch new environment. But I can have in one environment itself, I can have multiple applications. Okay, for that I have to click on create new application. Say new app. Again, you have to choose the web server and all of that stuff, right? So what else you can do? What else? Actions. If you want to save the current configuration, if you think that everything is fine right now and I want to have this environment saved, click on save configuration and say my working configuration or something like that, which makes sense to you guys. My working config, my working probably, click on save. So this configuration is saved. right? Now if I come back to environments, if I want to uh, right, if I want to clone environment, means I want to have a similar environment, or if I want to load the configuration, right? So this was the configuration which we saved. If I want that configuration back, I just have to click this and click on actions and load, and that's it. It will go back to where it was, right? So that's how it's going to work. Rebuild environment, terminate environment. When you are done, click on terminate environments, and this environment will be deleted. Right? If I look at this environment, I don't have any environments, but if I want to delete the application itself, I can delete it. So application is going to consist of multiple environments, right? So under one application, you can have multiple environments. So one environment that I have now is for the web server, but if you want, I can have more than one environment also. Okay, so that's to the Elastic Beanstalk. If you guys have any questions, we can talk about it. If any of you guys have deployed an application, you will understand these things very, very clearly as to what I'm doing. Okay, so that's fine. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and talk about another topic. Let's talk about CloudFront. Right? CloudFront is another service from AWS. If you guys remember, we talked about something called as edge locations. So basically, CloudFront is a content delivery web service. And if you guys remember this, AWS Global Infrastructure, we were talking about these diagrams, right? We're talking about these diagrams and we are trying to understand what these blue dots are. And if you remember, these blue dots are called as edge locations. These edge locations are used for data caching and as well as for Route 53, right? Say, for example, why do you need data caching? Say, for example, you have launched, say, we'll take an example of YouTube.com, right? YouTube.com web server is in US, right? And it is on AWS platform. Just for imagination, we're going to think like that, right? So YouTube.com web server is in US, and they have launched a new video in YouTube.com. And say there are 1,000 people in India who wanted to see the video at the same time. So if all of those 1,000 people cross all the seas in between, right, cover so much of distance through internet, and if they are going to get the traffic over the internet through such a long channel, there will be a lot of latency, right? And it will be slow basically. More the distance, the slower the connection, right? The closer the connection, the closer the distance, the faster the connection. So as you guys are in India, say for example, instead of your request going out to a server in US, say if you guys for now will think that you guys are in Mumbai, right? If you guys are in Mumbai or anywhere in India, so what's going to happen is instead of your request being sent to the US, right, your request will be served from either from Mumbai or from Chennai, wherever you are geographically located closer to one of these edge locations. So what's going to happen is all of the data from the main server will be cached into these edge locations. This is just like a caching server, a proxy server. By itself, it's not going to have any data. The actual data is going to be in somewhere else. The actual data is going to be in your regions or availability zones. right? And in edge locations, data will be cached. There will be your proxy servers to get the data. Okay. If you guys remember, that is the use of edge locations, right? And they have lot of edge locations spread across the world. So with this huge range of edge locations, what's going to happen is your data can be cached across multiple edge locations across the world, so which might give better user interaction or customer experience, right? So if you want to hear those terms better, right, then CloudFront is a content distribution solution which really helps you, right? So it talks about that, talks about all of the stuff, and these are all the edge locations they have. So in all of these data centers, if you configure everything properly, in all of these data centers, there will be about, I guess there will be about 40 here in the list. And all of this, say, even if you upload one page, a picture, right? If you configure it in such a way that the data should be cached, so if somebody is trying to access it from India, right? The first time they access it, probably they're going to talk to the US server. But for the next time, if somebody needs the same picture, instead of going to the US, your page will be served from either from Chennai or from Mumbai, depending on where in which part of India you are in. Okay, so there are many features here. You can look at it. Data caching is a sort of complex thing, right? So there could be many questions here. We'll try to answer this. I will not be able to answer all of your questions. Maybe I'll try to answer most of your questions. Okay, so let's look at it. Let's look at it. Okay, so the first thing that you have to do is you have to click on create distribution. Okay, and under distribution there are two types of distributions. So CloudFront is content delivery network, right? So for the content delivery network, you have to first configure a distribution saying that where your actual content is. We are saying distribute the content, but we also have to say where the content is, right? That where the content is called as origin, right? That we are going to look at it. But there are two types of delivery methods. One is called as web, another one is called as RTMP, right? This RTMP is normally used to say broadcast any flash media like your YouTube videos, or if you want to do any live streaming or something like that, then you're going to use a RTMP distribution. But we are not going to use anything of that sort. So for now, what we are going to use we are going to use a web distribution, right? We are going to use this web distribution. So this web distribution is a normal web files like your HTML files, JPEG files, PNG files. For all of this stuff, normal static files, this is going to work fine, right? So I'm going to click on get started. Now the first question it's going to ask you is, where are your files, right? If you guys remember, yesterday we are looking at it, AWS architecture icon. The piece that we are looking at today is this one, right? So if you look at carefully, we are talking about this. So it can have an origin as an S3 bucket or an elastic load balancer, right? So basically the question that I am seeing here is origin domain name, right? So it is asking me where your content is, whether your content is in an S3 bucket or an elastic load balancer. And if you look at this elastic load balancer, this has been launched by my elastic Beanstalk, right? For now, I'm going to use this bucket. I guess I have this bucket. I should have this bucket here, S3 bucket. I hope I have some files there. And I have a couple of files here. Okay, so I have a couple of files here. So this is the bucket. So what I'm saying is, create a distribution, but for that distribution, the main source of files is going to be this one, my S3 bucket, right? So under S3 bucket, for example, this is my S3 bucket, right? Under this bucket, I have a folder like, say, under this S3 bucket, I want to create a folder like, say, PDFs, right? Under this under this bucket, I have the PDFs folder. So what it is asking you is, you have chosen S3 bucket, that's fine, but what do you want to, which folder, or what is the path under your bucket that you want to put in CloudFront, right? If you don't select anything, it is going to include everything, right? But if you want to have a specific folder only in CloudFront distribution, you can do that. So for example, I want only my PDFs. This is what I created, PDF, right? I want to have files of only the PDF folder cached, and that is what it is going to say here also. If you want CloudFront to request content from an S3 bucket, right, beginning with a slash CloudFront depend directory name. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have slash PDF folder under CloudFront, and this will be your origin name. This is the name that it has automatically given, right? So if you want to change anything, you can change it, but I'm not going to change it for now. And the next question that you get is the restrict bucket access, right? So if you are going to do this, right, probably we'll look at this later. We'll come back to it. I wanted to show you that, but we'll come back to that again, right? So what it is saying is, so this section is origin settings, right? So here we are saying what is the origin of my distribution, right? So the next section is for caching settings, cache settings basically, right? So what should be cached, how it should be cached, how the data should be cached, because CloudFront is all about caching the data, right? So what path pattern, so what type of file should be cached, right? So what type of file should be cached. For anything, if you have any question, you can click this I button here, right? By default, when you're creating a CloudFront distribution, everything is cached. Everything is cached under this folder, right? But if you want to have later on, once you create your distribution, then you can configure it. But for now, it's going to be default, right? The default cache behavior only applies to paths, right? To change the behavior for routing or request, for example, right? So this is going to happen later on, but for now, it's going to be star. Okay. So how will the files be accessed? Right. So how will the files be accessed? Whether the files will be accessed through HTTP and HTTPS both, or say once somebody types in HTTP link, you're going to redirect them to HTTPS link, or you're going to serve packets only through HTTPS links. This HTTP and HTTPS, I hope you guys know what is HTTP and HTTPS. The normal websites where there are no SSL certificates, the unsecured websites, they run on HTTP, right? If you are going to use some sort of certificates to secure the communication between a browser and the server, then you're going to use something called as HTTPS. Okay. So, but for now, we are going to go with new protocol policy, HTTP and HTTPS both, right? And there are different methods, right? So when you're trying to see a file, when you're trying to access a file, there are different methods through which your file will be accessed, right? Say when you're trying to download a file, that is called as get method. In HTTP, that is called as get method. You are getting a file, you are transferring a file. You just want to get the details about the file. You don't want the file. You just want to know when the file was last modified, or when the file was created. So all of this information will normally be there in the header of the file, right? So by default, right, what all should be allowed on the CloudFront distribution, whether it's only seeing the files or you also want to upload the files, right? Either it is only seeing the files or you also want to enable uploading, deleting, and all of this stuff, right? So based on your requirement, you can choose it. You can say, I'm going to say, for example, I'm going to only look at the files. I'm not going to modify anything in my website from a browser. So I'm going to go with get head, right? Then the next question is forward headers, right? It says none improves caching, and if you click on here, basically it's going to tell you when should a header of a file be forwarded to the requester. Okay, it talks about that. Select whether you want CloudFront to forward the header sent in the viewer request and to cache your object based on header values. What does that mean is, say if I'm trying to access a web page, right? If I'm trying to access a web page, obviously my request will have the information on the file that I'm trying to access, right? And that information will have some header and that information. So what do you want to do with that header? Okay, so whether you want to forward that header information to the server or not is going to be defined here. This is a sort of a complex thing with CloudFront. If you don't understand, that's fine. Just go with the defaults. None improves caching. Go with the default for now. And okay, so another interesting question with CloudFront is, say what I'm saying is the data is being cached, right? I have uploaded a picture, or we have uploaded a video in youtube.com, right? We have uploaded a video 1 hour back. Now all the people in India accessing the video are accessing the video from the nearest edge location, right? But after say in 25 minutes from the video has been cached in the nearest edge location, the video has changed, right? The video has changed, but all the people in India who are trying to access the video are still going to get the older video. I hope you guys are getting this, because the data has already been cached in the nearest edge location, and if the data, if somebody is trying to access the same file again, instead of going to the US, what it is going to do is it's going to CloudFront distribution is going to cache the video from the nearest edge location. That is when the caching is helpful, right? Every time if the request is being sent to the main server, then there is no point of caching the data, right? So so how long the object should be cached? If you just want to leave it to the header information, select this, or if you want to customize it, say I want the default cache time to be, I know that every 1 hour my file gets changed, right? I know that every 1 hour my file gets changed. Then probably I need to change the TTL value, how long the cache should be active, right? As soon as the TTL value expires, the next time if somebody requests the cache, instead of giving the request from the cache, edge location will forward the request to the origin, right? I hope you guys are getting this. For now, what we're going to do is we're going to leave this, and forward cookies we're going with the normal thing. We're not changing anything. Rest of the thing we'll just leave it, right? Another interesting thing here is distribution setting, right? If you look at these edge locations, we looked at a bunch of edge locations, right? We looked at a bunch of edge locations. Some 40 edge locations, right? So these are all the edge locations that are there. Okay, so edge location is nothing but a place where the data will be cached. right? So what does that mean is data will be stored. So once the data will be stored, it will be charged because nothing comes free. Even the data caching, even for the data caching, AWS is going to charge money for you, right? So the more and more locations you're going to use it, right, for caching data, the more and more money you're going to pay, right? So, for example, if my major customers are only in United States and Europe, then I don't want to cache the data in Asia, Australia, and South America. Then I'm going to save some money, right? So if you know where your customer base is, right, and if you know where your customer base is, and what do you want to, and what all edge locations you want to cache your data, okay, if you know that, you can select it. If you're going to select use only US and Europe, your data will be cached only in these servers. Your data will not be cached in these servers. But if somebody is going to access from these locations, if they know the pages that they have to access, and if the data is not cached in these locations, what's going to happen is they might hit the US web server, the origin itself, right, which might slow down everything. So you have to take a call on what all locations you want to cache your data. I'm going to say all edge locations, right? Ignore this is not very important. So once this is done, right? So once this is done, once this CloudFront is configured, what is the domain name that on which you want to access? Alternate domain names. Say I want to access CDN dot collabra AWS.in, right? If I'm going to do this, if you guys remember from yesterday's class, let me show you something very quick. I'm not going to go too much into Route 53 today, but if you guys remember, I'm going to quickly going to create a host. AWS.in. Create. Right. If I'm going to create a new record set, for example, and if I'm going to say, you can give any name that you want, and if I'm going to say alias PS, if you guys have noticed it, there are CloudFront distributions also, right? There are CloudFront distributions also. So this CloudFront distribution, that the name that I'm going to give here, if everything works out fine, that will be displayed here, right? Let's see how it comes, right? So what I'm doing is I'm going to create cdn.collabora.aws.in. That will be my alternate domain name. Then what should be the default object? So whenever somebody is trying to access this page, so what should come up first? Do I have anything in this PDF folder? I don't have anything, so I'm going to upload a couple of files. I'm going to upload a couple of files. So I'm going to upload this file, and I'm also going to upload. Do I have anything here? Any PDF file here? Okay, let's upload. I have something, a file by name Hadoop. I don't care any of that. Let me quickly download an AWS file. I have uploaded one of the files, so let me quickly download another AWS file. Okay, so I have another file as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to upload that file also into S3. Start upload. So we have these two files uploaded into our S3 bucket, and say whenever somebody is trying to access my CloudFront distribution, because the backend is this one, we know backend is this one, right? Because we have chosen this path and we have chosen this file to be our backend. So whenever somebody is trying to access the CloudFront distribution link, I want to give this as my root document, right? So if I'm going to do this, whenever somebody types in cdn.collabora.aws.in, they're going to see this PDF, the first page, right? So if you want to enable logging or on your CloudFront distribution, you can enable logging. All that you have to do is you have to select the bucket where your logs are going to be stored and then go with it. I'm not going to enable logging, and I'm going to click on create distribution. Right, it's going to take pretty long time. It's going to take at least 10 minutes, because what is happening in the background is it has to configure all of the edge locations to have this CloudFront distribution, right? That's the reason it's going to take some time. And this will be the link where my CloudFront distribution is going to be alive, right? Now if I come back to my Route 53, create a record set, and if I'm going to have this, somebody has a question. Let's take the question. Yeah, Rupesh.
No, actually, you did a mistake. There is Oladera.
Oh, I made a mistake.
See, yeah, spelling mistake.
Okay. So in
CDN dot Coladera. By mistake, you did D.
here, not here.
No. In route 50. See, CDN name.
Okay. I got the wrong domain name. Okay. However, okay, that's my mistake, obviously. But because however we are not. I mean, I don't have these records in my GoDaddy, so this is not going to work. I'm just trying to show you. Right?
Oh.
That's fine. Thank you.
Oh.
So we're going to delete this hosted zone. I made a mistake here. Create hosted zone. Collabora AWS.in. Right. So I got this time it's correct. Yes, it is. And I'm going to create a record set for it. And I'm going to give it as CDN. Right. And if I'm going to say ADS, yes. And if you look at this, right, it's showing up my CloudFront distribution link. So next time onwards, whenever somebody types in cdn.collabora.aws.in, provided I configure these names in GoDaddy or wherever your website is, right? Then somebody typing in cdn.collabora.aws.in is automatically going to route the request to this page, right? That's going to happen, but let's check what the status of our still going on. This is where the problem is. Normally this task takes time, the meanwhile, what we can do is we can I'm going to make this file public so that it should be accessible over internet. Okay, I'm able to access these two links. Cool. Okay. So it takes time. Let's quickly look at a couple of other things before this is getting created. Couple of information things, like say once your distribution is created, you cannot modify this yet. But once your distribution is created, if you want to look at, say for example, who all is accessing your CloudFront distribution from what all devices. Say some people visit your CloudFront distribution from say mobile devices. Some people come from tablets, some people come from laptops, some people come from smart TVs, right? So once you have your CloudFront distribution working, all of this information will be listed here, from what type of devices people are coming in, from what all browsers people are coming in, so how much your content is being accessed from each of the browser, right? From what all operating systems, because once a packet is going to come to your CloudFront distribution, it's going to have a header, right? That header is normally going to consist of all of this information. So CloudFront can give you reports on all of this content accessing details. Very detailed reporting CloudFront can do. The same type of reporting, if you are going to have a solution, it's going to be very difficult, right? And you can also know from which place, from which location your site is being accessed the most. So I can easily, if I can come to know from which place I'm, say for example, that will help me identifying where my customer base is, right? You can also see that. And let's see if the distribution is created. Still being created. Right. Then it will also show you in the viewers, it will basically show you from where all about all devices, right? And in the usage, right, it's going to show you how many requests are coming in the form of HTTP, how many requests are coming in the form of HTTPS, right? How much data is being transferred, how much data being transferred to the by protocol, by destination, to which country, to whom. All of these details will be here. They are basically only the reports, right? Then you have top referees. say your CloudFront distribution is being used in another website, right? So basically going to show you what all websites or what all the web pages which are redirecting the traffic to your CloudFront distribution, right? That will be listed here. Then it will have something like popular objects, right? So you have hundreds of files in your CloudFront distribution. So you have hundreds of videos in your CloudFront distribution, or hundreds of photos. which is the most accessed photo, or which is the most requested video. All of this information will also be listed here. Okay. Then you have monitoring and alarming. Say you can have a couple of monitors, like say if say I expect my business to have my CloudFront CDN to have say 1,000 requests per second. But if there are more than 1,000 requests per second, then I want to be getting alarmed about it. Then all I have to do is I have to click on create alarm, and I have to say what is that you want to monitor. I want to monitor number of requests, right? How many requests? In a similar way, you can say how much data transfer, how many errors, right? Then you can create an alarm. Click on create alarm, and that should be done. And if I come back here, it is still creating. These are all basically the ones here, all reports. We'll just give it some more time. We can't do much without it coming into an active state. Okay. In the distribution settings also, I think we can have look at a couple of things and understand what it does. Say for example, okay, say you have configured your TTL value to be 24 hours, right? So what you basically did is you initially configured files to be cached for 24 hours, but suddenly you know that you have uploaded a important file, right? You have uploaded an important file, and that file is going to change every minute from now on, right? Or you want to remove a file from all the caches across the world, right? So all the caches across all of your edge locations, right? So what you can do is you can take the help of something called as invalidations, right? So once you going to invalidate an object, that's going to be removed from edge caches, right? All you have to do is you have to click on create invalidation, and you have to type in the path or the name of the file. Once you click on invalidate, say I'll say abc.pdf. If I have anything, if I have abc.pdf in the cache in any of the edge location, if I click on invalidate, it's going to remove that from the cache. So next time if somebody wants abc.pdf, it's going to come to the origin, right? Then comes restriction part, right? Say here you have enabled here you have something called as geo restrictions, right? Say I don't want, first you have to enable geo restrictions. Then say for example I don't want my website to be, or sorry, not website, from my CloudFront distribution to be accessible from Afghanistan at all. I don't want anybody in Afghanistan to access my CDN. I want to blacklist them. Okay, So now nobody from Afghanistan will be able to access my CDN. All I have to do is yes, edit. And if you want to enable any geographical restrictions, you can do that with CloudFront. I'm just going to remove that. But that is achievable, right? All you have to do is you have to click on. I'm just disabling that. If you want to enable it, always you can enable it. All you have to do is click on edit, enable, and if you want to whitelist everyone, click on this. Sorry, click on this. That is, you're going to add all of these countries locations. We're not going to do that. Say you want to give custom error pages. Like say you want to say that somebody is trying to access a page which is not there on your website. Normally, what the error message that you get is 404 error, right? Page not found error. Instead of the page not found error, say you want to give an image, give something, give your company logo, saying that page not found. Go back to this link. If you want to have something like that, all you have to do is create custom error message. Say whenever there is a not found error, right? I want to give a custom response. Yes. What page you want to give? If you have a page, right? If you have a error, but your origin should have a folder like this, right? Say for example, my origin has PDF folder, right? Under that, if you have anything, you can give that a custom error message basically. Whenever 404 or anything like that, you can choose a custom error message. Even that is configurable with CloudFront. Right? So these three are configurable: invalidations, restrictions, and error pages. Let's look at the status. It's still creating. Normally it takes time. If you want to save time, if you really want to save time, what you can do is while create distributions, get started, reduce the list of locations here. Say only US and Europe, that will be created very fast. When you come, I remember selecting all of the locations, so that's going to take some time. Okay, it's already working. It is still progress, but it is already working. When I'm trying to access this link, right? I'm trying to access this link. It gives me the default root object, right? It is giving me the default root object, which is nothing but AWS SG intro.pdf, right? It is giving me. So my CloudFront distribution is working fine. Okay. Now, actually, these reports take some time because I have accessed it, right? So if it is real time, it should have already come up, but it is not coming up because it normally takes some time, right? So if I look at my S3 bucket, I have another one also. Even this is. Now, if you notice it, we are not accessing files from my S3 bucket. What we are doing is we are accessing files from my CloudFront distribution, right? I have these two PDFs. I'm accessing those PDFs from my CloudFront distribution and not from my S3 bucket, right? So now when I'm accessing this file the first time, right, I would have hit the origin, right? I would have hit the origin, but next time in my geographical location, if somebody is trying to access the same PDF, for example, right, they're not going to hit the origin, they're going to hit the nearest edge location, right? Say for example, if to load this PDF, it took me, just giving an example, it took me 2 minutes. Maybe the PDF is very big. Initially it has to go to the origin. It's going to take 2 minutes. But the next time, if somebody is going to access the same PDF, probably it could be done in less than a minute, right? Because the data is not coming from a remote server. The data is coming from a nearest edge location, right? Okay, so it is still in progress. So if you want to change anything here, you can change it. I'll say US. I don't want to have this in all the locations. I just want to have in those 3 locations. And if you want to again change any root page or anything like that, if you want to enable logging, all of this stuff, you can do it. Click on yes, edit. Right. Other than this, the interesting thing here is you can have more than one origin for a CDN. Even if you look at this architecture diagram here, for this CDN, one of the origin is S3 bucket, another origin is elastic load balancer. In a similar way, you can have it, right? All you have to do is you have to click on create origin. Say if you have an elastic load balancer, you can choose that, or else you can choose this S3 collabra AWS.in, or else I can choose the same what do you call, same S3 link, but to this origin, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a folder by name images. Create folder. Okay, have an images folder here. So this origin, one origin is going to serve my PDF files, another origin is going to serve my images file. For now, I have both of the origins in the same S3 bucket, but you can have different origins coming from different devices, right? Say for example, the PDFs, JPEGs, they don't get updated very often, right? So they're static content, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this static content on my S3 buckets, but my web pages, HTML pages, text files, logs, reports, all of these things keep updating every second or every minute. So I don't want them to be cached more, right? For them, the origin will be different, right? Probably I'm going to choose instead of this S3 bucket, I'm going to choose the elastic load balancer and the server behind that, right? I can do that. I'm going to say yes. Now I have 2 origins, right? Now I have 2 origins. And if you click on behavior, in this way you can have multiple origins. You can also have behaviors, right? If you remember, we were saying star here, right? While I was creating a CloudFront distribution, the only option that I had was a star. Okay. Now I can have different options. Like say, I can say for all JPG files, I want them to be cached only for 60 seconds, right? Maximum TTL is also going to be, TTL is nothing but time to leave, means how long your data should be there on the CloudFront distribution, right? I want a different caching. So I'm going to say create. So now for all other files, there is different caching mechanism. For JPEG files, I have different caching mechanism. In this way, you can have multiple behaviors, multiple caching behaviors for your files. Let's delete one of this because I don't have this folder anymore. I don't have this folder at all, so I have deleted this images. Okay, so there is another thing that I wanted to talk about was the restrict bucket access. Okay. Right. So what I'm saying is restrict the bucket access right now. If I look at my this one, right? If I look at my PDF, if I look at my PDFs folder, and if I look at the files here, I'm able to access the files from the S3 bucket links also, right? But I don't want somebody to access my S3 buckets at all. I want them to come through my CDNs only, come through my CloudFront distributions only, not through S3 buckets. Then I have to enable something called as restrict bucket access, yes, right? And don't go with identities. It is. I'll come back to it. Let me get back to it. Okay, so this is one we're talking about. Distribution settings, origins. Click this origin. Click on edit. Right. If you want to restrict, right? Don't change anything here. Just use an existing identity which is already being used. Click yes here. Right. So what it is going to do is right now, if you look at your, this is the bucket, right? New AWS bucket. I look at the properties of my bucket. Right now, if I look at permissions, and if I look at the bucket policy, there is no bucket policy at this point, right? So if I'm going to do this, yes, edit. If I'm going to say yes, edit. Now, if I do a refresh here, hold on. Okay, I haven't done anything, but it has come up, right? Now, if you look at it, there is automatically a bucket policy created, saying that only if the that's what it says. Basically, it has created a CloudFront user. Only if this user is going to access it, only then display. Otherwise, it's not going to display. Now, if I try to access this file directly, let's see what happens. Now, if I'm going to, if you're going for the exam, this is a very important question that you're going to get in the exam. I think it's coming from the cache, but what's going to happen is it's not going to come up. I guess that was coming up from the cache. So let me try to access it from this browser. Right, it is not coming up basically. Right, it's not going to come up because we have enabled something called as origin access identity from the CloudFront distribution. Right, so now if you want to access that S3 bucket, the only way that you can access that S3 bucket is going to be only from your only from the CDNs and not from S3 buckets directly. Okay, so I think I'm pretty much done for the day. If you guys have any questions, I should be able to take your questions. As I said, follow the links that I've given here in the chat and learn a bit about subnetting, because in the next class we are going to talk about VPNs, and when we are going to talk about VPNs, if you have knowledge of subnetting, you will be able to understand the things better. I'm going to unmute all. Okay, I'm going to mute all. Okay, go ahead. If anybody has any questions, you can raise your hand. If nobody is going to raise their hand, I think I would have to presume that we are done. Okay, I think we are done here. Okay, all right. I think I'm done for the day. So we'll catch up next weekend. All right, but by that time, go ahead and learn about subnetting, which will really help us understand the VPCs. And because in the next week we are going to talk about VPCs. Then I'm going to show you how to host a database web application on top of the AWS platform. Okay. All right, guys. Have a good week ahead. Bye bye.